Hey guys, welcome to my channel. You are in for a treat today. I'm gonna make my absolute favorite sweet bread. It is called Conchas, and I'm sure you guys have seen it in many grocery stores. They're absolutely amazing, especially when you get to eat them right out of the oven. So let's get started. To begin, we're gonna need 350 grams of all-purpose flour or bread flour if you have it. It has more gluten, so I guess gluten's a good thing. No, I'm kidding. Unless you're intolerant, right? Okay, so you're going to take your 350 grams of all-purpose flour, or about 2 cups, and then 1 packet of self-rising yeast, which is a 1/4 gram or 1/4 of a gram. And then we're going to give that a stir. And then we want to weigh out about 200 grams of sugar. And what we're doing is we're going to make a slurry, because an enriched dough is when you're adding the eggs and the butter and all the yummy stuff. But it makes it really hard on the yeast to be able to grow to its full potential. It's like you wouldn't give a steak to a baby, right? So we're going to start it off with a slurry, and it's just flour, some sugar, and some warm water and the yeast. And what that will do, it's going to create like a ooky mess, kind of like The Blob, if you guys remember that movie. And we're just going to let it hang out for about an hour. And as it does, that gluten's building for us, so we don't have to do all the heavy lifting, okay? And you want your water to be between 100 to 110 degrees. You don't want it any hotter than that, because what happens is you could kill your yeast, and then that's pointless. Nobody wants rocks, right? We want conchas, not rocks. So as you can see, the dough is very slushy, sloppy. It's just like the consistency of maybe yogurt or a milk, no, thicker than a milkshake, but like yogurt or sour cream. Okay, so we're gonna put that there and cover it with plastic. You always want to cover your bread with plastic. Otherwise you get this skin that forms on it, and then that prevents your dough or your yeast from rising and fermenting. So we want to keep it covered. Okay, so we cover it in plastic. The most important thing that my mom and dad taught me about baking, and my dad could give Paul Hollywood a run for his money, he is the bread man, is yeast is shy. So we don't want yeast to be looked at. You got to keep it in the dark. He's happiest in the dark. And so we're going to leave that for about an hour, and I'll see you in a sec. Hi, friends. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot to put the sugar. It's like medicine. If you don't take it, it don't work, right? So I measured it out and forgot to put it in. So I mixed in that sugar real quick. It was super easy, no biggie. And now for final answer, I'm going to let it set for about an hour, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys. Hey, friends. Welcome back. That was fast, right? But honestly, I feel like every hour of my life goes that fast. So here we're going to flip on the light, because now it's time to wake up our baby yeast and see how they're doing. So we have, if you can see, it's kind of, it almost looks like a sponge. Like it's big and fluffed up, and you can tell there's lots of air and activity in there. And that's exactly what we want. So now we're going to attach our mixing bowl, and we're going to add some goodies to it. We want to add 3 eggs. I always crack them into a glass, like measuring cup or bowl, because we don't want shells in our bread, do we? No. And then we'll save these shells for my son's compost, trying to, you know, do our part to save the planet. And then we are going to attach our dough hook. Now, if you don't have a mixer, again, don't let that hold you back. You can absolutely do this by hand. What I would recommend is using your wooden spoon and start mixing in the flour until it's workable. Then you can knead it by hand. But today, we're going to cheat. So we're going to add on this dough hook. And we want to turn it kind of on a medium speed for now, because we got to add some more goodies. Because, that's not bread, right? Everybody knows that's not what bread dough looks like. So we are going to add another 500 grams of flour. And it's about 3 cups if you don't have a scale. And then let me pull this out so we can get to it easier. We want to dump the flour in. I usually do it in parts because I want to give it a chance to incorporate before I add in more. If you dump in too much, you run the risk of getting pockets of dry dough, and nobody wants that. Or pockets of flour. And then mix it in. There we go. Now we can turn it up a little higher. Not too high though, or you're going to have flour everywhere. Ask me how I know. See how it's becoming like a doughy mixture? So we're going to let that go for a little bit. And we want to add in some vanilla. Now we're going to add in some vanilla. You can measure it out with a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, but I do it like this. Bloop, bloop. It's my bread. I can have as much vanilla as I want, right? So we're going to add that in. We're going to just let that mix. It's going to take probably about 10 minutes on the mixer. We just want to make sure it becomes smooth and shiny, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a few minutes. Another tip, if you're having trouble with your mixer walking the line and creeping towards the front, take a towel, wet it slightly, and then you can lift your mixer and set it under. That will prevent it from scooching and coming off your counter. That happened to me one time and scared the bejesus out of me. I almost jumped out of my skin. So it's been about 3 minutes, so we're not there yet. But as you can see, the dough is starting to come together. It's getting smoother, but it's nowhere near we want it to be. So we're gonna turn this bad boy back on and let it go for about another 5 to 8 minutes. See you soon. Hey guys, welcome back. So it's been about 8 minutes, and you see how the dough is like super stretchy. It's still a little sticky, but don't worry, we're not quite done yet. So we are going to start adding fat, butter. Everything is better with butter. So when we incorporate the butter, we want to do a little bit at a time, because otherwise it just coats your mixing bowl and you have butter like swirling around in like if you had greased your mixer, which we don't want that either. So I usually do like a decent sized chunk, and you're going to add it 1 chunk at a time until it's incorporated. So we're going to throw it in, let it mix, mix, mix until it's all the way incorporated. I'm going to slow it down a little bit and see how it catches on the side. You want to make sure it gets all the way incorporated and then add a little daub of butter. This is where God teaches us patience. Patience, my young Padawan. Okay, so now my butter is all incorporated, and it's so bizarre because you would think adding more fat, like this kind of stuff, would make the dough wetter, but it doesn't. It makes it actually less sticky, and see how beautiful that's coming along. You want to be able to see light through it without it ripping. So we got to add some more fat. We're going to add 175 grams or about 1 cup of, you can either use vegetable shortening My preferred is lard, or but I have a son who's a vegetarian, so I'm stuck with this. But it will come out just as amazing, I promise. So then we're gonna measure out 175 grams, hopefully getting more in the bowl than on your floor and countertop. Perfect. So then we're gonna incorporate this the same way we did the butter, little by little. Bread is something that it takes patience, and I usually make bread when I'm bebopping around the house and I have time that I'm gonna be here. Bread is not something you make in a hurry. It's not something that is just like whipping together Hamburger Helper or something. It takes time, but it's worth every minute, I promise. So let's get this Crisco mixed in. Okay, so now we're gonna give our poor little mixer a break because, whoo, she's hot. Whoo, she's hot. So we need to let her rest a little bit, and we're gonna start doing the fun part. If I can figure out how to work my machine. Okay, so we're gonna pull off our dough hook. Oh, this dough is gorgeous, guys. Absolutely gorgeous. Your family is gonna be blown away, I promise. The first time I made them, my mother-in-law, who is like my mother, she couldn't believe that I had made them. So you guys are gonna get props, I promise. When this comes out of the oven, you can smell it from outside. It's so amazing. So we're gonna pull this out, and we want to knead it a little bit by hand. You want to make sure you have your scraper with you, because the dough, you want to work it. And there's many different ways to knead dough. If I've had a bad day at work, this is one of my favorite ways. Smack it. Smack it. But be careful, because there has been cases of flying dough where it ends up in your living room or something. Okay, another way to do it is to make a long rectangle, and you're going to fold and push, fold and push, fold and push until you get all the way through to the end. Then with your bench scraper, you're going to flip it, fold it in half, and make a rectangle again, and then just do that again. And it's really important to knead your dough by hand for a little bit so you can get familiar with the texture. See how nice and stretchy and smooth this dough is? So it's the perfect consistency that we're looking for. Oi, we don't want that in there. Okay, here we go. And I always think of bread as being one of the most loving things that you can make for somebody, because as you knead it, you're putting your energy, your love into it. This is the part where the love goes in. Bread to me just says, I care, because it is something that takes a minute, because it is something that you can't just whip up in 2 seconds. To me, bread says love. When you make it for people you care about, I make it for friends sometimes. I love making bread. And like I said, it's a good stress relief too, if you've had a kind of crummy day, which Lord knows we've all had a couple of those, huh? So we're just gonna knead this out until it gets that beautiful texture. Oh, you're so beautiful. I love it. Yeah, this is what it's supposed to feel like. You got it. This is it. Okay, so now we want to form it into a ball, like this. And then we're going to get a glass bowl. Actually, I should have had it over. Okay, we're going to have the glass bowl. And the reason I like to use glass is because cling wrap does not stick to plastic very well, right? And remember, we want it covered because we don't want that skin to form and prevent our dough from becoming all it can be. So we're going to take a little bit of Crisco. Yes, I use my hands. My family's from the South, and this is how we do it. Of course, we wash our hands first. All right, and get a nice good coating on that. We don't want our dough sticking to the inside. And then you're gonna pick up this beautiful dough, and I kind of fold it under a few times so that it gets like this nice flat surface on top. And then plop her in. Oops, don't break your dishes. Okay, so we're gonna put some plastic on here. I like cling film because that's just what I was taught. Where did my scissors go? Scissors, where are you? Oh, here they are. Okay, so let's cut this because I'm at the end of the roll, so it won't stay in the box. Lucky me. Okay, so we're gonna cover this guy so good. And what's the secret? Yeast is shy, so we got to make sure we cover him up really good. Say nighty-night. We'll see you in a little bit. See you in an hour. Oh my goodness, guys. I am such a goober gobber. I forgot the salt. You cannot have bread without salt. So it's been about an hour and I just remembered. So as you can see though, our bread has risen very well despite not having the salt. So what we're going to do now when we do our next round of kneading, we're going to incorporate some salt. That way we have that beautiful, oh, look at this dough, guys. Oh, it's so smooth and perfect. So we are going to add 2 teaspoons. We don't need a whole lot because it's a sweet bread, but you need a little salt whenever you make something sweet because that is the way that the flavors are completely enhanced. If you leave out the salt, your structure and your bread is going to be funky and your flavors won't be so predominant. Like salt is super important, as we all know. And just like the Bible says, we are called to be salt of the earth and a gentle light to make our world better. That's our job, to make the people we come in contact with feel a little more loved and a little more hope and a little more kindness. So now we're going to top this bad boy again, and this time we're only going to let it set for about a half an hour. While this is setting, now we get to make that crunchy bit that goes on the top. Some call it crackling. In Spanish, they call it the pasta, but that's that colorful part on top of the bread. So we're going to set this guy aside while we do that. Now, the masa, or the pasta, the top part, the crackling, it's vegetable shortening, powdered sugar, and flour, all in equal parts. So a lot of the times what I'll do is I will make up a batch of it because it holds in the refrigerator very, very well. And then I can, next time I go to make bread, I already have it made and I don't have to mess with making this part yet. So what we need to do is add to our mixer. I'm going to do 300 grams of each. 300 grams of flour, powdered sugar, and our vegetable shortening. Actually, I'm only going to do 200 because that's a lot there and I don't need that much. There we go. So we're going to add that in here into our beautiful mixer. And has she earned her salary today or what? Poor thing. I've been working her like crazy. So now we're going to do the flour. Again, we need 200, right? I changed it, 200 grams. There we go. Voila. Perfect. And then our powdered sugar. There we go. And we're going to add that in there. So with our paddle attachment, because it's going to be the consistency of like cookie dough, so I find that my paddle attachment is the best. And we're going to mix that like on a low medium because we don't want powdered sugar and flour all over the kitchen. And we're going to add a little vanilla. Again, you know how I measure. Okay, so now it's coming together beautifully. Okay, so once it comes together, pull off your mixer. And what I will do is I will portion out to color different colors so that I can have chocolate and a couple of pretty colors, because you know that's what calls your attention to those breads, right? The beautiful colors and designs on top. So I will take a good chunk out, probably like leaving just a fourth. And this is guesstimate, guys. It doesn't have to be exact. Oy, oy, oy. There we go. All right, so to color it, I go with my lightest color first, for obvious reasons. If you do the dark and then you try to do the pink next, or you can wash out your bowl every time. I'm too lazy for that. So we're gonna start with put our paddle attachment back on, lift this boy up, and you're just gonna put a couple of drops, just enough to get to the shade or the color that you want. So now we're gonna empty out the pink. Getting as much of it out as we can. Okay, and see how it forms a ball. It's not really like workable dough because remember it's just shortening sugar and flour, but it's a consistency that it doesn't stick to your hands. So we're going to put that aside, and now we're going to pull out another fourth. And then the next color I'm going to do blue. And the reason is yellow and blue make green, right? So if I do blue and there's any leftover, it doesn't matter because there's already blue and green, right? Hope that makes sense, guys. And again, if you don't have a mixer, you absolutely can do this by hand, but I highly recommend either coating your hands in shortening or wearing rubber gloves, because otherwise you're going to have your hands all dyed for a few days. And, you know, if you don't mind that look, go for it barehanded. But those are two little tricks you can use so that it's not coloring your skin. All right, so here we have our 4 colors. I made pink, blue, green, and chocolate. To make the chocolate one, all you have to do is add some cocoa powder, however amount that you would like. So we are going to divide our balls. So we're gonna, ooh, our beautiful, beautiful pan. Yay, so we're gonna dump that out. Oh yeah, it's looking beautiful. Okay, and the easiest way I find to divide it is to make a log, more or less the same width. And then I just cut it in half and then keep cutting it in half until I get to the size that I'm looking for, which should be about 16 pieces. There we go. And you can just throw them back in because they won't attach to themselves. We're not massaging them or, kneading them together. I'm going to divide. Sometimes the tips get a little smaller because it just narrows at the end. So I just feel it in my hand and more or less the same size. It does not have to be perfect, but you do want more or less the same size, because if you don't, then you might get some that are raw in the middle or some that are way over baked. So if they're the same size, they need the same amount of time in the oven, right? So again, cut in half, cut in half. And it's about a fistful is what it feels like. And we're going to do it again. Then I'm going to grab a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. Let me grab that. Okay, so we got here our balls, and what we're going to do is fold them into themselves. Excuse my grandbabies, cuter than ever, but go play in the living room, honey. So you're going to fold it into itself and then spin it like this on the counter. And then I like to squash it down. Okay, again, we're going to make, sorry about that, guys. And then we're going to just fold it into itself like you're going around in a circle. And then once you've gone all the way around, flip it over on the counter, and then you're going to roll it into a ball. And this is going to help our bread have structure so that it can rise. Now, once you're done, this is with one cookie sheet, take some of this shortening and rub it in your hands. This is why Grandma always had such soft hands, because Crisco does wonders for your skin on your hands. So we're gonna coat this, and what this is this is like the glue that crackling is gonna stick to. I didn't learn this for quite a while, and I couldn't figure out why my crunchy, sugary bit at the top kept falling off. And then I discovered this secret. So I'm going to put a nice thin coat. You want to make sure the whole thing's covered. And this will prevent the skin from growing as well. Okay, so now that we have our dough balls all rolled out and we have them with a layer of that vegetable shortening on it, now is the fun part. So you're going to get your, it's called a tortillera or a tortilla press. If you don't have one, you can use 2 sheets of parchment paper and roll it out, but it's much harder. These are very inexpensive. If you can get your hands on one, trust me, it will make your life so much better. And as soon as this video is done, you're going to be an expert at making conchas. So you're going to be making them all the time, I promise. So to cut these out, I get just any plastic bag, and you're going to cut 2 circles out of it. It makes it much easier for handling the top part. So we're going to put a pinch of of flour onto the machine. And we're just going to take a small ball of our crackling or pasta. And we're gonna make a little disc like that. I flip it in the flour so that both sides are coated. And then just like boom, done. And then I usually turn it 180 degrees and then do it one more time. You don't want to make it too thin though, so be careful. Super, super fragile. But see how it slides right off that plastic bag? It's so much easier that way. And then you're just going to drape it over and put it on. And if it cracks a little bit, all you got to do is massage it and you can seal those cracks relatively easy. You want to keep this relatively clean because as the pasta sticks on it, it will cause the new one you're doing to stick to the plastic and not come off as easy. So just keep in mind, if you get a buildup, just kind of scrape it off. Yes, I'm a messy baker, but I know how to clean, so it's all good. Okay, so let's do some, oh, you know what? Let's do green and blue. I love this combination because it almost looks like planet Earth. Like, it is so cool looking. So let's do this. Oh, no more flour. There we go. Squish. Squish. Isn't that so cool? It looks just like Earth, doesn't it? Okay. So now that we have all of our breads covered with the paste, I'm going to take my Concha cutter. I invested in one of these because I had so much fun doing these. However, if you don't have one, don't fret. All you need, pizza cutter. It's basically the same thing. So you're just going to cut the design, whichever design you want. I mean, if you want to make happy faces, make happy faces. But the traditional design is, so I got some dough on there, is what we see in the stores, right? And you just gently push down. You don't need to press super hard, okay? Because then you run the risk of the paste sticking to your cutter and not staying. So you just, I dip it in flour, softly press. All right, so we're gonna set these guys aside, let them rise for about 30 minutes. Okay, now that they've doubled in size, we're gonna bake them in the oven at 350 for about 30 minutes. See you in a bit. Oh my gosh, guys, if you could smell this bread, like seriously, I love the smell. I love the taste. I love the texture, and you will too. Let me pull them out of the oven and see what they look like. Wow, look at these. How amazingly yummy. So you're going to have to let them set for about 10 to 15 minutes so that the crunchy bit on the top can harden and you don't burn your fingers because it is super hot. See you in 15. All done. And let me tell you, these will melt in your mouth. You've never had a better sweet bread. See you next time. Bye.